lived in a world designed not for endless growth, but like for everyone's well-being, including, neurodivergent people, like, folks listening.
Right.
That's the pretty radical idea behind degrowth economics.
Oh, yeah.
And today we're taking a deep dive into how it could like reshape life for autistic individuals.
Okay.
We're going to be pulling insights from Jaime Hoerricks' article,
Okay.
Sustainability for All.
Yeah.
Using degrowth principles to build a better world for autistic people.
It's a compelling intersection, for sure.
Yeah.
And this article digs into some really fascinating concepts.
Okay.
One that stood out to me was how capitalism's focus on individual achievement.
Yeah.
That whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality
Right.
can actually create some major barriers for autistic people.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit.
Okay.
I can see how a system that, prizes self-sufficiency above all else might leave some folks behind, especially, those who need different kinds of support to thrive.
Exactly. And Hoerricks brings up a really relevant example. The gig economy.
Oh, yeah.
When you think about it.
Yeah.
A lot of autistic individuals have these skills that are so valuable in that space.
Right.
But they often don't get to reap the financial rewards that they actually help to generate.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, like, who's truly benefiting from the systems that we all use every day?
Exactly.
I rely on ride sharing and food delivery all the time.
Yeah.
But are those services actually supporting the people who make them possible?
It's a question worth asking.
Yeah.
And Hoerricks actually takes it a step further.
Okay.
Connecting this gig economy example to the chronic underfunding of crucial public services.
Yeah.
Healthcare, education.
Right.
These are things that directly impact the well-being of autistic people.
Yeah, for sure.
But they're often neglected in a system that puts private profit ahead of public good.
The article uses a really striking real-world example to highlight this.
Okay.
The U.S. rail system.
Right.
Because it's largely privately owned, there's less incentive to invest in things like safety and innovation, which...
well, we see the headlines.
Yeah, we've all seen those headlines about derailments.
Yeah, it's a powerful illustration.
Yeah.
And it really highlights a key difference in thinking.
Okay.
If we compare the U.S. system to publicly funded rail in other countries, we often see that those systems are safer, more efficient, and a more sustainable alternative to individual car travel.
Okay.
Which, by the way, has been heavily subsidized by the government.
Wow.
It makes you think.
It does.
What happens when we actually prioritize collective well-being over private profit?
So we're seeing how the current system might be failing some folks, especially neurodivergent individuals. And this is where degrowth comes in, right? But it's not just about doing less or like austerity measures, is it?
Definitely not, no.
Okay.
Degrowth is about intentionally reducing unnecessary production and consumption. But here's the crucial part.
Okay.
It's about making sure that everyone's basic needs are met within the limits of what our planet can actually handle.
So it's about like shifting our priorities, not just like shrinking the economy.
Exactly.
The article makes a clear distinction between degrowth and austerity measures, which often end up hurting the most vulnerable populations by cutting essential services.
Precisely.
Okay.
Austerity is about scarcity, while degrowth is about sufficiency.
Okay.
And the article gives us kind of a glimpse of what a degrowth society could look like.
Okay.
Imagine scaling back wasteful industries like fast fashion.
Yeah.
All those clothes ending up in landfills.
Right.
And redirecting those resources to universal health care.
Right.
Affordable housing, robust public transportation.
This is where it gets exciting for me, thinking about what this could mean for autistic people.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine a world with readily available, affordable, and truly neurodivergent friendly support services.
Absolutely.
I mean, that could be game-changing.
Game-changing.
Yeah.
And think about the impact on sensory overload.
Oh, yeah.
In a world that values quality and durability over cheap disposable goods.
Right.
You'd have fewer products that are designed to break down quickly.
Yeah.
Less visual clutter.
Right.
More emphasis on craftsmanship.
Yeah.
Things that can be really important for autistic individuals.
And imagine the potential for work that's actually meaningful and inclusive. We could see a real shift towards valuing autistic strengths.
Yeah.
Like attention to detail.
Yes.
Or a deep focus on specific interests.
I think that's a really important point.
Yeah.
A degrowth economy could create space for people to contribute in ways that align with their neurodiversity, rather than forcing them to conform to a very narrow definition of productivity.
This next concept from the article is super interesting to me.
Okay.
Universal Decent Living Standards, or DLS.
Right.
It's based on a study by Hickel and Sullivan.
Yeah.
And it lays out a framework for ensuring everyone has their basic needs met within planetary boundaries.
Now, a lot of people hear that and immediately ask, okay, but how do we pay for all of this?
Yeah, right.
And the article addresses that head on.
Okay.
It proposes redirecting resources away from wasteful industries.
Oh, okay.
And those speculative markets that aren't actually contributing to human well-being. Essentially, taking from areas that don't serve us and investing in what truly matters.
So how do we decide where those resources go?
Right.
I mean, who gets to make those decisions?
That's the question.
Yeah.
The article puts a lot of emphasis on public participation.
Yeah.
Which makes sense if we're talking about creating a truly equitable system.
Right. It's about transparency and democratic decision-making.
Exactly.
And it challenges us to rethink how we measure progress.
Right.
You know, DLS is fundamentally different from metrics like GDP.
Right.
Or purchasing power parity.
It's not just about economic output.
Yeah.
It's about human well-being.
So instead of focusing on how much we're producing and consuming, we'd be looking at things like access to healthcare, quality education, affordable housing, a sense of community. It's a whole different way of looking at what it means for society to be successful.
It's about moving away from this idea that more is always better.
Right.
And recognizing that true progress lies in creating a world where everyone, including neurodivergent individuals, has the opportunity to thrive.
That's a really powerful concept.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to explore how DLS could translate into tangible benefits for autistic individuals specifically. So let's dive into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Let's do it.
So we've been talking about this idea of Universal Decent Living Standards, or DLS, and how it shifts the focus from economic growth to human well-being.
Exactly.
I'm really curious to hear more about how this could impact the lives of autistic people in a tangible way.
Well, let's imagine what that could look like.
Okay.
One area where DLS could have a huge impact is housing.
Okay.
Think about how many autistic individuals struggle with sensory overload in traditional housing setups.
Yeah.
With DLS, we could see a shift towards creating accessible housing options.
Okay.
Designed specifically for sensory sensitivities.
Yeah.
So things like soundproofing, adjustable lighting, dedicated quiet spaces.
Yeah.
These could become standard features.
Wow.
Making a huge difference in quality of life.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
It's making me think about how often autistic people get overlooked in those conversations about basic needs.
Yeah.
Like we talk about affordable housing, but not necessarily about housing that truly meets everyone's diverse needs.
Exactly. And it's not just about the physical space.
Okay.
DLS could also lead to more support for autistic individuals within their communities.
Right.
Imagine having access to trained professionals who can help with things like navigating social situations, managing daily tasks, advocating for individual needs. This kind of support can be crucial for fostering independence and inclusion.
I'm also thinking about how DLS could revolutionize education for autistic students.
Absolutely.
We've all heard stories about kids struggling in traditional classrooms that aren't designed for their learning styles.
Exactly.
What if DLS meant having access to personalized educational support?
That's a fantastic point.
Yeah.
Imagine a system where every autistic child has access to teachers trained in neurodiversity, smaller class sizes, and tailored learning plans that cater to their individual strengths and challenges.
Yeah.
It would be a complete paradigm shift from the one-size-fits-all approach that so often leaves neurodivergent kids behind.
Right now, those kinds of resources are often only available to families who can afford private schools or expensive therapies. DLS could level the playing field and make sure every autistic child has the opportunity to reach their full potential.
And this ties back to the idea of public provisioning, which is central to the degrowth framework. It's about recognizing that essential services, like healthcare,
right,
education and housing, should be accessible to everyone, not just those who can afford to pay for them.
This whole conversation is making me rethink what a truly inclusive society could look like. We're talking about moving beyond just tolerance or acceptance, and actually creating a world that celebrates neurodiversity.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it. It's about recognizing that autistic individuals have so much to offer and creating a system that allows them to contribute their unique skills and talents. Imagine a world where those strengths are valued, not just in the workplace, but in all aspects of life.
Okay, so we've talked about how DLS could lead to some pretty amazing improvements. But I do have to ask, some people might say that transitioning to a degrowth economy would be incredibly disruptive, even chaotic.
It's a valid concern. Any major societal shift is going to come with challenges. But think about it. The current system is already incredibly disruptive and chaotic for many people, especially those who are marginalized or excluded. The status quo isn't working for everyone. And we're already seeing the consequences in the form of inequality, climate change, social unrest.
So the question becomes, what kind of disruption do we want? Do we want to continue down a path that's unsustainable and ultimately harmful? Or do we want to embrace a different way of living that prioritizes well-being and equity?
Exactly. And the article makes a really important point. Degrowth isn't about creating a utopia. It's about recognizing that we have a choice. We can continue to prioritize endless economic growth at the expense of everything else. Or we can choose to build a society that values human and planetary well-being above all else.
The article also explicitly addresses this idea that degrowth would stifle innovation. Do you think that's a legitimate concern?
I actually think the opposite is true. The current system often stifles innovation because it prioritizes short-term profits over long-term sustainability and social good. In a degrowth economy, we'd be incentivized to invest in truly innovative solutions that address real human needs, not just create new products to consume.
That's a really interesting perspective. Making me think about how much of our current innovation is driven by, well, frankly, by greed and consumerism. What if we redirected that energy towards solving problems like climate change, inequality, and accessibility?
Imagine the possibilities. A degrowth society could unleash a wave of creativity and innovation, focused on creating a world that's not just sustainable, but truly equitable and just.
This whole conversation has been incredibly thought-provoking.
Me too.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface of what degrowth could mean for autistic individuals and for society as a whole.
I agree. It's a complex and nuanced topic. And there are many different perspectives on how this could play out in practice. But what's clear is that it offers a framework for challenging the status quo and reimagining what a truly just and sustainable future could look like.
And it's not just about grand systemic changes. It's also about the choices that we make in our daily lives. The products we consume, the companies we support, the values we embody.
Absolutely. Every action we take can contribute to either perpetuating the current system or building a more just and sustainable future.
Okay, before we move on, I want to touch on one more concept that's mentioned in the article. Universal basic income, or UBI. I know this can be a controversial topic.
For sure.
But I'm curious to hear how it fits into the degrowth framework.
Well, UBI is often discussed as a potential element of a degrowth society. The idea is that by providing everyone with a guaranteed basic income, we could create a safety net that allows people to pursue meaningful work, education, or other activities that contribute to their well-being without the constant pressure of financial insecurity.
This could be especially relevant for autistic individuals who might struggle with traditional employment due to sensory sensitivities, social challenges, or inflexible work environments. I mean, imagine a world where everyone, regardless of their ability to work a traditional job, has the financial security to live a dignified life.
That's the promise of UBI. And it aligns with the degrowth principle of prioritizing human needs over economic output. It's about recognizing that everyone deserves to have their basic needs met, regardless of their employment status.
Okay, I'm definitely going to need to do some more research on UBI after this.
It's a fascinating concept.
It is,
yeah.
And I can see how it could potentially address a lot of the systemic inequalities we've been talking about.
Absolutely.
But for now, I think it's time to shift gears.
Okay.
And explore how the current system, with its emphasis on endless growth, is actively harming autistic individuals.
Okay.
Let's delve into that in the final part of our deep dive.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we spent some time exploring like all the potential benefits of degrowth.
Right.
But let's get real for a second. You know, the article doesn't shy away from stating that the current system, with its focus on profit, often harms autistic individuals.
Right.
It's not just about a lack of support.
Yeah.
It's about systemic inequalities that are baked into the economy.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
You know, the article goes beyond just theory.
Right.
And gives some concrete examples of how capitalism, in its current form, is failing autistic people.
Okay.
We see it in the chronic underfunding of special education programs, leaving teachers overwhelmed, and students without the resources they need.
Right.
And then there's the job market.
Okay.
Autistic individuals face these disproportionately high unemployment rates, often because workplaces aren't designed to accommodate neurodiversity.
It's like the system is set up to reward a very specific type of person, and anyone who deviates from that norm is left to figure it out on their own.
Exactly.
It's not just about individual companies. It's about the underlying values of a system that prioritizes competition and conformity
over collaboration and inclusion.
The article uses a really powerful example to illustrate this point.
Okay.
The 2008 financial crisis.
Oh, wow.
Remember the collapse of Lehman Brothers?
Oh, yeah.
It sent shockwaves through the global economy.
It did.
And who ended up paying the price?
Right.
It wasn't the wealthy executives who made risky bets.
Exactly.
It was ordinary people who lost their jobs, their homes, their savings.
That whole event really exposed the myth of trickle-down economics.
Didn't it?
The idea that if the rich get richer, everyone will benefit. Clearly, that's not how it works.
And the article argues that this tendency to privatize gains while socializing losses is inherent to capitalism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The 2008 crisis shows how the pursuit of endless GDP growth can come at the expense of genuine well-being, especially for those who are already vulnerable.
So how does degrowth offer a different path? I mean, it's easy to critique the current system, but what would an alternative actually look like?
Well, degrowth proposes a fundamental shift in our priorities.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on maximizing profits and economic output, it advocates for prioritizing human needs and well-being within the limits of our planet.
Right. So like rethinking our relationship with work and consumption.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the very definition of progress.
The article suggests that this would require a radical redistribution of resources.
Right.
Moving away from a system that concentrates wealth in the hands of a few.
Yeah.
Toward a more equitable distribution that ensures everyone has the essentials.
Right. And this isn't just about charity or handouts.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that everyone has inherent value and deserves to live a dignified life.
Yeah.
It's about creating a system that supports human flourishing, not just economic growth.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with this lingering question.
Okay.
If not endless economic growth, then what should be the measure of progress in the 21st century?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And I don't think there's a single easy answer.
Yeah.
But this deep dive has given us some clues.
Okay.
Maybe it's time to start measuring progress in terms of well-being, equity, sustainability, and the flourishing of all people, including those who are neurodivergent.
This deep dive has explored the potential of degrowth to create a more just and sustainable world, especially for autistic individuals.
Yeah.
But it's not just about theory, it's a call to action.
Exactly.
What would a needs-based society look like in your community?
Right.
How can we advocate for policies that center human well-being and inclusivity?
The future isn't predetermined.
Yeah.
We have the power to shape it.
Right.
By questioning assumptions, challenging the status quo, and demanding systems that work for everyone.
We hope this deep dive has given you some new insights and sparked some critical thinking about the systems we live in.
For sure.
If you have any thoughts or questions, we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration.